ES put in a failed breakout of all-time highs last week. Is this a short-term top, and where should you look to buy the dip? These are the trading setups to watch for this week. Last week, we saw several large rotations up and down inside a very wide range as we traversed this balance range both directions. That Sunday night gap down was bought up, and then the reclaim of 69.26 early in the week triggered that look below and fail, which then targets a traversal all the way to the top of the range. So extremely strong trend mode straight up to the top of the range to start the week. Then we put in a new all-time high and actually a failed breakout, swept the prior all-time high, failed breakout of all-time highs, then failed back into balance and saw the same range traversal all the way back down with this long liquidation on Thursday. We did put in a relief bounce after that long liquidation, which rallied back into the 69.91 area. And then for the rest of the week, really fairly choppy inside a little bit smaller range, but two lower highs where sellers defended where they need to and ended the week basically in the middle of this balance area. A little interesting this week, we basically had two halves to the week. The first part of the week, extreme trend mode, rally mode, straight up starting on Sunday night. All shallow dips are bought directly into new all-time highs. Then we had this very choppy kind of small range for FOMC, and then the day after FOMC, we get the failure back into balance and this long liquidation and trend mode straight down, back down the range into the bottom of balance, and then choppy to end the week. And really, you had to be careful this week on not getting on the wrong side of trend. So on the way up, you couldn't be shorting. If you're trying to short resistance and stepping in front of this momentum on the beginning of the part of the week, you got run over quite a bit. And then once we get that long liquidation and start traversing back down the range, if you're trying to buy shallow dips again, or knife catch this all the way down, then you got run over to the downside. So a little bit tricky this week. The middle of this balance range was very difficult to trade. Really you had to get long on the edge here or short near the edge here and kind of stick with the trend and avoid trying to fight the trend, especially in the middle of balance. Some of the best long setups last week on Sunday night, a couple different reclaims of 69.13 in order to kind of get positioned for this look below and fail and that traversal of the range back up. And then we did have 69.13 reclaim on Thursday, 69.26 reclaims here, and even a failed breakdown of 69.37 on Friday. The best short opportunities last week were trying to be short underneath 7,018 or 7,007 on the failure back into balance after breaking it out, and then back tests of 69.91 were defended well for lower highs by sellers on Thursday and then again on Friday. For next week, we've established a bit of a smaller range between 69.26 and 69.91 inside of a larger range inside last week's range between 69.13 and 7,018. So early in the week, direction will depend on which one of those sides of the smaller range that we break, and we do have a potential to gap down on Sunday, in which case buyers' ability to reclaim 69.26 or failure to reclaim 69.26 will determine the early continuation move. So if we gap below 69.26 and sellers reject attempts to reclaim there, then we can get continuation down to start the week. The main pivots to watch for next week are 69.91, 69.26, and 68.87. So buyer's objective for next week would be to defend or reclaim 69.26 and then clear 69.70 and 69.91 in order to see the top of last week's range again. On the other side, seller's objective would be to hold below 69.26 and then see failure of that 68.87 area and the prior week low at 68.79 in order to see continuation down into 68.34 and 68.18. Now, the top setups to watch for next week on the long side, watch for a failed breakdown of 69.19, especially if we gap down below it and then reclaim 19 and 26. You probably want to be long for that rotation back up towards 69.70. I would also watch for a failed breakdown of the prior week low. If we see 68.79, watch for sweeps there that reclaim in order to see that potential rotation back up into 69.26. And then finally, if we get a larger sell-off, watch for a failed failed breakdown of either 68.37 or 68.14, which could see rotations back into the prior week low. As far as short setups, watch for shorts into 69.91, especially on any sweeps above there that then fail. That can give you position for that rotation back into 69.70 and potentially back into 69.26. And then if we do gap down underneath the Friday low, you can watch for rejections of the Friday low and 69.26 in order to be positioned short for that rotation into 68.87 and possibly 68.64. That's what I'll be watching on ES this week. If you want to trade live with real pros every day, join us at Trade with Insight.